Why didn't you tell me you had a crush on Andrew Jones?
What?
Should I be concerned?
What are you talking about?
All reviewers have crushes on Andrew Jones. Did you not know that?
I think I remember that comment.
Yeah. Yeah, there were multiple comments claiming this
Yeah.
as fact.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
All Jung something, I don't know. All reviews got a crush on Andrew Jones.
Huh.
Phil out there is saying, why does Andrew Jones get name checked all the time and not other designers?
You know, I saw that comment too. That is a damn good question. Andrew, not to take anything away from his capabilities as a speaker designer, but I will admit he is one of the few that I believe has sort of transcended the norm, which is the designers just tooling away in the background, and you typically know like the CEO of the company or the founder, but not necessarily the designer. So kudos to Andrew Jones for that. But yeah, there are a number of very talented speaker designers out there that no one is aware of their names.
Frankly, Andrew Jones is the only designer I know the name of.
Yeah.
He doesn't know us, but
No.
I know of him.
Yeah.
It is an interesting question, or it's an interesting subject to think about. Like, why is what he does so special or so newsworthy? I mean, I guess it's because he's just been around for so long, and he's been a part of so many like major brands, maybe, or I don't know.
He's been around a while. Not to say that other designers haven't been. You know, like Peter Como is another one that is well known. But he's been around. He's been on both sides of the spectrum. You know, super high end budget. The fact that he was pretty prolific at Pioneer before going to Elac, and now over with Mobile Fidelity. I think probably because he has straddled the lines of ultra high end and budget in, you know, one designer, probably more successfully than anybody. I think that might be the reason.
Okay, well, okay.
Either that or he's got a really good PR guy. I don't know.
I don't know. I saw there was just a few comments like that, and I'm like, honestly, we just mentioned him because
There's no way you can talk about ELAC in 2024, given especially a new speaker that is their first without him at the quote helm.
well, especially since it's been like 4 years since we've reviewed
Yeah.
an Elac passive speaker.
Right.
So I don't know. What do you guys want from us? Anyway,
That should just be how we start every review. Like, what do you guys want from
yeah,
us?
what do you want from us?
We just bring you the
Yeah, this is part of this is a fact.
this is the gig. Sorry.
So we included it. But yeah,
What do you want from us? It's like the word. That's my favorite phrase of 2024. What do you want from us?
Anyway,
Anyway.
This next comment I thought would be a great way to really kick off this episode of Unplugged.
Okay.
Number 22.
22.
Dragonstone wants to know, Andrew, if you went traveling for a month, let's say you were on an island and you could take a stereo hi-fi system with you, what would you choose? The catch is it has to fit in a regular travel case.
Speaker that fits in a suitcase, stereo. Ooh, so right there we're looking at powered. I would probably do what we've done in the past when it comes to traveling and just take a pair of Biosound levels. Even two of them, they would sit flat on top of each other in a suitcase and fit and travel just fine. So that's probably what I would use because we have taken them traveling and they're phenomenal.
Yeah, that's probably what I would take, unless it was just a pair of headphones or something.
Yeah.
It's a great question, but the more I think about it, it's a really hard question to answer because the Dragonstone specified that it has to fit in a regular size suitcase.
Yeah.
And unless that's the only thing that's going in there, how many suitcases do I have?
I mean, most suitcases, though, are only going to be about 24, maybe 32 inches tall. So you are limited. You are, even if you have a whole suitcase dedicated to just your hi-fi gear that you're traveling with, I still think a BO sound level is the way to go, or a pair of them.
Or maybe like a Sonos.
Beam.
No, I was gonna say I mean, you could maybe if it fits, but the Sonos, the one we take out to the pool.
Oh, the Move or the Move 2 would be another great one.
Is that the green one we have?
Yeah.
Yeah, that something like that.
Yeah.
But I do
Provided
also
the app works.
I like the level. In fact, I think you could just take one of them.
Yeah.
I know he said stereo, or they say stereo, but I think you could just take one.
We get away with one outside all the time. All the time.
Anyway, fun question.
Good question.
All right. Well, we're going to get into the Elac speakers that we reviewed last week, or you reviewed. When did you review it?
Last week.
What day is this coming out?
This is coming out Friday. So at the time of this recording, I reviewed them 48 hours ago. But by the time you see this unplugged, I reviewed them a week ago.
Oh my God. That hurts my brain. Okay. So we have a couple of questions that broach the topic of speaker material and how that impacts the speaker overall, quality, the review that it receives, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
So one of the commenters is from C Booty.
Okay.
Says, as someone who's reviewed hundreds of speakers, Andrew, I'd be very interested in hearing your thoughts on good old-fashioned paper cones delivering more natural tone and timbre versus metal, Kevlar, or other exotic materials employed by speaker manufacturers over the past decades.
Okay.
Then Diesel Fiend, why are 90 plus dB budget speakers so rare? It's not like there isn't a wealth of options to choose from. Why even use aramid for the speakers when paper is cheaper and better? What's aramid?
It's a type of material.
Okay. Well, what are your thoughts?
I think materials nowadays comes largely down to marketing. I really do. I think maybe once upon a time there were differences. Maybe they were even audible. I know that there are differences that obviously can be measured, whether or not those measurements translate to, say, the audible human realm. Maybe not. The reason why I say materials, I think, come down to marketing is because for so long, everything was a silk dome or paper. And when you kind of reach the peak of those types of products' capability, at least at a time, having something that is literally different is a way to differentiate your product from what came before it. But in 2024, I think new technologies, new ways of manufacturing and whatnot have brought us to a point where while like beryllium's really great or diamond's really great or this, that, and the other thing, like you can still have a silk dome tweeter that performs as well, if not equal or better than a beryllium, a diamond, or an aluminum, blah, blah, blah. And the same would be true of woofers. It's really going to come down to what the speaker designer wants to use, and I'm afraid to say probably also what kind of budget they're being forced to design within. I would be hard pressed to say that just raw driver, like if you were to put a raw driver floating in space that was paper next to a raw driver floating in space that was Kevlar, playing the same, call it frequency, let's say it's 300 hertz. I would be hard pressed to say in a blind test that you'd be able to tell those two materials apart if all things are equal and they're both built to the same relative standard. I think where people start to hear differences isn't maybe necessarily the driver material so much as it's implementation within the rest of the cabinet, crossover, and just speaker design on the whole. And so, yeah, I think materials are used more as a marketing thing rather than a, oh no, these do perform better. Maybe once upon a time, but not so much today.
Okay. Well, keeping on with the sort of materials theme,
Mm-hmm.
I was really surprised by some of the disappointment I saw in the comments
Mm-hmm.
over the design and finish options. I mean, there was a comment about that saying that the finish is very plastic looking,
Mm-hmm.
a little blah looking. Yosef says the lack of base is disappointing, so are the looks and the choices of colors. And,
Okay.
I personally really like the look of this speaker. Go figure.
Go figure.
I don't find the wood veneer to look plastic at all. I think it's very nicely finished.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it photographs well, so I don't even understand. Sometimes something looks better in person and
Mm-hmm.
you can't really capture the essence of it on camera, but I don't even think that's the case here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I really like the design element over the tweeter.
Mm.
It, to me, in a way, it kind of reminds me, not exactly, but in a way, it reminds me of the Mercedes badge.
Yeah, it's got a car, like a Lincoln.
Yeah, it has like a car badge vibe,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I think makes it look a little bit more expensive.
Sure.
I find the look to be very classy. And for a black box, I'm even more impressed, especially when you stop and think about the price tag.
Well, and
I've seen,
that's it. The price tag. You know what I mean? I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think a lot of people are forgetting just how inexpensive the speaker really is.
I agree. I mean, I've seen a lot of very expensive speakers that look like $450 speakers, but
Mm.
this one, in my opinion, does not.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for $450 a pair, that's not each, that's a pair. You have to temper your expectations, as we say in the review. Like, as long as you focus purely on performance, yeah, you have to exclude the finish or the lack of options. But for what they give you, now it's not a real wood veneer. It is a wrap. It's a vinyl wrap, but it still looks nice and it's adhered very, very well. I like the soft touch front. I agree. Maybe it's a little plasticky. Sure, it's a plastic material, but I think it looks kind of sharp. I think it looks sharp. The grill, I mean, the grill's fine. It's, magnetic, and maybe it could be a little bit more contrasty, maybe more of a gray versus what it is. But again, you just have to take certain things in stride when you're talking about a $450 product that's being sold at retail at that price.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw somebody in the comments wanting to know like what kind of crossover it has or like wanted to see the crossover, and I'm like,
Who cares?
come on, stop. Yeah, like
Who
what are we
cares?
talking about?
Who cares? I don't. Can I just take a little detour? Little
Yeah,
detour.
go for it.
We showed you objective measurements near and in room, near field and in room. We showed you on axis, off axis, and we showed how this compares to a number of products. And that's something that I will be doing going forward. I don't care if the crossover is a buffalo nickel hot glued to a paper clip with two pieces of twine around it, all in a bazooka bubblegum wrapper. If that's what it takes to produce the response and the performance that we are getting and seeing here, who cares? Who cares? Because at that point, if you're already this good at whatever bargain basement price crossover they've assembled, putting better parts in there is just spending more money. And that's something that people need to wake up to. If you are already in a really good spot, I get it, some speakers not in a great spot, fine, you can worry about the crossover. But understand, every speaker comes to market with the explicit intent of the designer, whether you know their name or you don't. After that, it's what you want to play designer or what you prefer, in which case you probably shouldn't have bought that speaker in the first place. You know what I mean? Like the amount of people that are like, oh, you just fixed a crossover and it does it. It's like, then don't buy that speaker in the first place. Go buy something that's already in line with what you want, because you're not going to be chasing your purchase with more money. With more money. Like, this speaker at $450 is insane. I don't care if the crossover is made of paper cups. It's great. I digress.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's a bit odd.
Yeah.
Obviously we see a lot of comments, and there's it's not just the Elac. I mean, it's
No.
any product.
Yeah.
There's always a corner where people are really having, taking the piss out of a product where it's
Yeah.
like, well, what is it? What is it made of? Like, but what's the woofer design? Like,
Yeah.
what's the,
Why is it two-way, not three-way?
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of
Who cares?
conversations like that happening. And
Yeah.
and if you're just doing it because that just is your, like, your jam,
Yeah.
okay, but I do feel that for some reason those kinds of conversations are often used to pick apart a product
Yeah.
that doesn't really have a problem to begin with.
Exactly.
And I wonder, like, how did that start? Like, and of course I know I can already hear you. You're already typing, but there are manufacturers that purposely put in crappy parts or whatnot, because they're trying to take advantage of you. And
No, see, that's the
I
problem.
just maybe that happens. Maybe that happens. I'm not going to say that you're 100% wrong, but I just don't think that it's always what's going on. Maybe you just don't like this particular sound, and that's okay. That's okay, but maybe just move on to something else rather than. I just think there's this element of creating a conspiracy about everything
Yeah.
that has kind of dominated this space and lots of others, let's be honest.
That
but-
whole argument, though, I'm sorry, I got to go back. That whole argument about, oh, well, they're just putting the cheapest thing in there to rip you off, and it's like, take a breath. Of course, they're putting in the product that achieves the design and performance objective that costs the least amount of money. Duh. But as someone that's been around manufacturing, especially in the AV space, a lot of brands, when designing a product, will often bring in samples of a lot of different parts, and they will start systematically testing each part or each configuration of parts to figure out how close they can get to what they need within the budget constraints that they have. And if they can hit the target, like, let's put this in like sports terms. If the goal is to come in first, that's the goal, to come in first place. And I can come in first in a race car that costs $200,000 less than the car next to it, and I still come in first. The race team is going to pick the cheaper car because that leaves $200,000 in the budget for tires, in case you run into a wall. You know what I mean? Like, this whole notion that if my $200 widget doesn't have caps from a $20,000 speaker in it, it now suddenly sucks. No, it doesn't.
I mean, really, but what is this really about?
It's about a boutique industry where there are literal small companies whose entire business model is to convince you that there's something wrong with what you've bought, and that rather than buy right, buy once, buy a kit to fix it. This has been going on for years. I can remember reading about silver pastes and different types of by-wire jumpers, and all you need to do is fill the bottom third of your loudspeaker with like cat litter by just pouring stuff down the port. Like
Wait
this,
a minute, what?
don't even, we're not even going to bother. I'm just telling you, like, this tweaker mentality has been around forever. This is not new. It's just, we live in an era now where it's a lot easier to put this type of messaging out there. And as a result, a lot of people are kind of, I guess, tuning in or waking up to it for the very first time and going, oh my God, oh, you have no idea. No, this crap's been going on forever. You know, if you spend $500 on a speaker and it's not performing the way you want it to, or worse, it actually has made you happy for years. And then you saw a video and now suddenly you're like, oh, you know what? I am unhappy. And you're going to spend another $300 to quote fix it. Take that $300, put it in an account, put it in a jar, just start adding $1 to it every day, and then go buy your next level up speaker. Don't chase money you've already spent to turn something into something it was never supposed to be.
Well, speaking of being disappointed, Cliff Forrester says, I have not heard the debut 3.0,
Okay.
but the prior debut speakers measured well enough, but were to my ears boring.
Okay.
Didn't get the hype around them personally.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I want to say I totally understand where Cliff is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
I believe I felt the same way about the other Elac speakers that I've heard, which has only, for the record, been 2.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm pretty sure I said the previous passive Elac speaker was boring and too neutral for my taste.
Yep.
And I don't know what's happened. Maybe my taste in sound has evolved, or maybe the speaker has a new sound. I don't know. Whatever it is, this is the first Elac speaker that's really agreed with me.
Yeah, I mean, it can be any number of things. I recall feeling kind of the same way, like the previous generations, the Andrew Jones generation. I couldn't really fault them. They are exceptionally good. Maybe not always my cup of tea. I found them to be difficult to drive, which I always felt like I had to throw a little bit of power at them before I'm like, come on, wake
Well,
up.
what's curious for me, now that I think of it, again, going back to what we talked about earlier about speaker designer names and being aware of them, I'm pretty confident back when we had the older Elacs, like from years ago, I didn't know who Andrew Jones was, for sure. No offense, Mr. Jones.
Yeah.
But now that I do know who he is, and I have heard other speakers he's made, for example, since he's gone over to MoFi,
Yeah.
the whatever it was, the Source Point 8.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I freaking love that speaker.
Totally different.
Totally love that speaker.
Yeah.
And I can tell you for one thing, the Elac that we reviewed years ago didn't sound anything like what he built for MoFi. So yeah, I'm a little bit. It's interesting because this Elac that we reviewed, the 3.0, again, I don't think sounds like past Elac, which I believe was made by Andrew Jones.
Designed by, yeah.
But also doesn't sound anything like Andrew Jones from MoFi. So he's got
range.
He's got different personalities, I suppose. I feel the Elac 3.0, I thought music sounded really good. It had a rich, fuller sound to me. I definitely preferred the Elac soundstage to that of the Bowers and Wilkins, which felt more localized and it just felt smaller to me. And I know you and I had it. We've discussed that, and you're welcome to like go expand on that. But even more surprising to me was how good the Elac's intelligibility was. So much so that I actually preferred the Elac to the B&W when we were watching TV and movies.
Okay.
You know, overall, I really like this speaker. I know I said this already or alluded to this already, but I would have never, ever have guessed that it costs less than $500 for the pair.
Yeah.
So I applaud Elac with this speaker. I think it's really good. And if anybody out there is looking to get into this hobby or, You know, maybe you've been sitting on a really old pair of speakers for 30 years and want to look at something new in your living room or in your office or whatever. I would try these.
Yeah, I think it starts kind of here. Um, the only other like cheap speaker that I remember being as impressed as I am with these, the Fluence XL, is it the XL8S bookshelves?
The XL8, yeah.
XL8 bookshelves, which admittedly are about $300 a pair. Um,
They're
not
less than that.
oh my God, really?
Yeah.
I thought they were like $299 a pair.
No, I don't even know if they crest $200.
Wow. Okay. Well, that speaker is, in my opinion, very impressive for the money. So if you're just getting started, that's kind of been a bit of my go-to for people that are like, hey, money's tight, space is tight, or I don't even know if hi-fi is going to be it for me. I love starting people there. This is just another fantastic option. Now, the Elac 3.0, in my opinion, is a better speaker than the Fluence. Compared to the Fluence, it sounds like the Elac costs twice as much. Thankfully, for under $500, I think you are going to get appreciable differences in performance. And I would say, unless you're willing to go up market and spend for notably different types of performance parameters or finish or build quality, I'm having a hard time at this juncture saying that unless you're just looking for something a little bit different, I don't know of a speaker $1,000 or less that I can outright say is just hands down better than what I believe the Elac will provide you 90 to 95%.
Okay, moving on. I want to talk about power requirements
Okay.
for the Elacs. We had a really kind comment from Pablo, who lives in Argentina.
Okay.
Pablo says, I was ready to buy some Dolly Oberon 3s. I know you listened to the Oberon 1.
Okay.
For a budget receiver, Pablo owns a Sony STR-AN 1000, which is a 6 ohm receiver.
Yep.
I'm having a hard time understanding the best pairing for this kind of equipment, as it's not always clear. You said the Elac are great for this purpose, parentheses 6 ohm, 87 dB sensitive, but I can't find them in my market, which is Argentina and Spain.
Okay.
Do you think the Dolly, which are also 6 ohm, 87 dB, would be a good match? Is there another parameter that I can look at to know if they will be a good pairing before buying?
Yeah, I mean, impedance is important to look at. A lot of times, speaker manufacturers will kind of sneak in two impedance ratings. And the first one they'll say is nominal, which basically, in a nutshell, layman's terms, means that for the majority of the speaker's overall response, 20 to 20, it's sitting at around 8 ohms. However, next to the 8 ohms, you may see a minimum impedance number either on the spec sheet right below it or in parentheses. And if it says minimum ohms 4 or 3.8 or 3.2, that means that somewhere along the frequency response of any speaker, it's going to dip. And it's going to dip into that territory that may cause some amplifiers some trouble. Now, a lot of times it's just going to dip like at a couple of frequencies, and it's going to be few and far between, and you'll be able to get by. But if the nominal impedance is 4 ohms to start, and then it dips from there, a lot of AVRs, which will say, hey, 8 to 6 ohms or 8 to 4 ohms, if it says 8 to 6, probably not a good pairing. If it goes 8 and it gives you 4 ohm ratings, you might be okay. But this might be an instance where you also have to keep an open mind towards separate amplification down the road. So in your case, knowing that you have a Sony 1000, which is a phenomenal, just affordable receiver, if the nominal impedance on a Dolly is, say, 6 ohms, and there's no other information there letting you know that, oh, the minimum impedance is 4 or the minimum impedance is 3.8, I would say that you're probably okay. It's not often you get a speaker where it's like the nominal impedance is 6. A lot of times they'll say 8 and then tell you that the lowest is like 4.8. So usually when I see 6, I'm like, okay, they're doing a more of a middle of a road kind of thing. So my gut says you're probably going to be okay. But always, always, always really do look at the nominal and minimum impedance. Because if that minimum impedance is like 4 ohms and lower, sometimes those speakers can cause issues for budget-oriented AVRs. Now, if you've got something like a Marantz Cinema 30, you're going to be okay. You got a higher end Sony like the 7000 ES, you'll more than likely be fine. But the 1000, yeah, your dollies will probably be good, but those are some things to look at.
Okay. Johan wants to know if you think that the Elacs would be okay on a WiiM amp.
Will they be okay on a WiiM amp? They will. They work. Again, it's not that I hate the WiiM or any of these TI-based amplifiers. Well, some of them I do hate because they're really bad. The WiiM is good. It's serviceable. I just think as long as you manage your expectations and you don't take the volume in room really much beyond about 70, 75 dB, I think you'll be okay. Adding a sub to the WiiM can help. It can. But I still think that that's a very specialty component that is great for desktop or a small office or bedroom. Out in our living room, it's still one of those that I bring out from time to time, and I'm just like, yeah, okay. But then I run into its limitations pretty quickly. And I even did test it on the Elacs. And again, works, but I ran into some limitations. I ran into headroom issues. I ran into what I was hearing and could identify as distortion, in our main room, relatively quickly. It's just stuff that you didn't run into with, say, an Audiolab 7000 or heck, even an Emotiva Bass X amp. You just don't run into that.
Oh, right. Well, moving on to your favorite segment of Unplugged.
Comparisons, right?
Yeah.
I'm learning.
You are.
22 episodes in, and I'm like, all right.
You're not just a pretty face, babe.
Oh.
Joe wants to know. I see people asking for comparisons to the POLK R200s.
Okay.
Although I think you did that speckled throughout the review. Thanks for noticing, Joe. He did. So perhaps just sum up your comparison in that regard in one contiguous segment next week.
Okay. Well, if I'm not mistaken, I have not gone on like Crutchfield or something to figure out what the R200s are selling for today. When they came out, they were more expensive than the Elac Debut 3.0s. And as a result, from a fit and finish build quality standpoint, I do believe the R200s are the superior product. The finishes are nicer. I believe the build quality is just a little bit more refined, just little odds and ends are just tightened up. Sound-wise, the sensation of there being a little bit more low mid-range and bass boost in the 200s, I believe is going to be there, but there's going to be a little bit more roll-off. So some of you may feel that the 200s are a little bit more subdued directly compared to the Elac 3s. Because of that little bit of bass bloom on the 200s, the mid-range of the 200s might come across as sounding a little fuller, warmer compared to the more kef or exacting sound of the Elac Debut 3s. Which is best? Again, can't say. I will say that dynamically and from a power standpoint, I believe the Elacs are going to be a little bit punchier, a little bit more, responsive, and are going to pair better with a wider range of budget electronics. Whereas I believe, if memory serves, the R200s were more or less a 4-ohm speaker, and they did require just a little bit of, to come to life. And this was in the R200. And very much the truth in the R700. Both are phenomenal. Would not fault anyone for choosing one or the other. And if you buy one or the other, you've bought a really good speaker regardless.
Next up is the Pro-Ject SpeakerBox S2.
Love that speaker.
Santiago Aranda Mescua.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I got that right. I feel like I deserve a pat on the back for that one. Hey, Andrew, considering the price, the comparison that came first to mind was the now I can't say that, was the Pro-Ject SpeakerBox 5S2. Do you think the Elac and the Pro-Ject are comparable performance-wise?
I love the Pro-Ject SpeakerBox. It is a phenomenal speaker and very much in line with the Elac here. The Pro-Ject is smaller. It is a smaller speaker. The finish and build quality of it, in my opinion, is nicer. It is more expensive, so it should be. As far as performance goes, they're very, very evenly matched. They almost have eerily similar frequency responses. So this is going to come right down to whether or not you feel the extra $200 to $250 investment in a more stylish loudspeaker in the Pro-Ject is worth it for you. Because I believe, will you hear differences between these speakers? Obviously you will. Will those differences be the kind like, oh my God, it's just night and day? Maybe not. Maybe not. If I were building a more budget conscious forever system that had to live in my home, I would probably look at the SpeakerBox or invest in that, in the finish options that it affords you. But both are great.
Moving on to Wharfedale, Christian wants to know, how do the Elacs compare to the Wharfedale Evo 4.1 or 4.2?
Oh, okay.
We did review the Evos.
Yeah, back in Austin.
Those were very nice looking speakers.
Oh, build quality wise, the Evos smoke the Elac. Let's just call it what it is. Way better built. Way better built. Way firmer sound. Way more defined sound.
Didn't they have an AMT tweeter?
They had an AMT tweeter that I actually really liked. Wharfedale might hold the record for me as far as AMTs from a brand that I like. I do think the Evo is I think we had the 4.1. I do believe the Evo is the better speaker. But if memory serves, wasn't it like $700-800?
They're $800.
Yeah. So I'm in the same camp.
For the pair though.
Yeah, but I'm in the same camp as like B&W and even the Lumina 2s, which I know are $1,200 a pair. It's like, are you necessarily going to experience twice the level of enjoyment spending twice as much? Maybe, maybe not. Will you have a, quote, better speaker in one facet or another by spending a little bit more money? Yes. Yes, you will. How you value that extra spend is entirely an individual decision and choice. And I can't make that decision for you. But as far as like, is the Wharfedale better? I do think it's a better speaker. Is it twice the price better? I don't know. I really don't. Because unfortunately, in this instance, I'm not able to say I put one right next to the other, and here are the differences that I heard.
Well, Joe wants to know if you could maybe drop a thought about the Wharfedale Super Dentons in comparison.
Super Dentons are going to seem a little bit fuller. Dare I say warmer. I remember those having actually a little bit more of a broader sound than even the Elacs. So if you're one that's like, I like a little bit of more finite separation and definition, I think the Elacs actually do a better job. I love the look of the Wharfedales. I do. I really, really do. They're gorgeous. And there's no doubt they're better built.
Really?
I think the material.
No, what I say, really, I'm questioning your description of them, because, call me crazy, but I feel like I thought the Super Denton was very much in opposition of the Wharfedale sound that I'm used to, which would be attributed to, or I would use words like warm and neutral and
I mean, it was a more neutral sound than previous, but I'm saying in direct comparison to the Elac. Granted, I do not have them here at the same time, but I do have their measurements done in the same place using the same microphone. And there are little peaks and valleys with the WHARFEDALE that are not necessarily present in the Elac. And those little peaks and valleys may translate to someone being like, okay, there's a little bit more body right here, little bit more weight, maybe a little bit more presence of bass. Definitely linear in that mid range. The WHARFEDALE has, you know, a little. It's not as rolled off as previous designs, but there was something about the cabinet that I recall going like, wow, it's still a very broad sound. And not that the Elacs, which I say are broad in comparison to SVS or B&W, but the Elacs are going to be, in my opinion, just a little less broad compared to the WHARFEDALE. I personally would probably buy the Elacs, me personally.
yeah, I don't know which one I would get. I remember I definitely felt like the Super Dentons were not as neutral to me as, for example, the previous Denton 85. And you kind of alluded to that they didn't roll off. Or did you say they rolled off more or less?
The Super Dentons did not appear to roll off as much, so there was actually a little bit more treble extension.
Right, and I think that's what I was getting at earlier on, where I recall feeling quite differently about the sound of the Super Denton than you originally or what I originally felt like you were describing today.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which one I would pick, because it's been so long since I've heard the Super Denton and we didn't get a chance to listen to them side by side. But like you said, it is a step up in build quality.
For sure.
Let's move on to Focal. We had quite a few people wanting to know about how you would compare the Elacs to Focal. Specifically, the THEVA Carbonator wants to know exactly that. How would you compare the Elac to the Focal THEVAs?
The Focals in our room gave off just a slight enhancement of like liveliness, just a little bit more. A little bit more lively, a little bit more punchy. You're going to get that little bit of boost in the bass compared to what the Elac is giving you. Does that make it better? I don't know. Some people are really going to like that. Some people, not so much. Yeah. But as far as like, what are you getting for your money?
I mean, they are $1,000.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, what are you getting for your money? I think you're getting comparable performance for $450 out of the Elac. And so, like I say in the review, unless you're just like really wanting a certain finish, a look, or you want to support a brand, that's going to kind of play a role in at the 1,000-ish price point versus Elac. Because the Focals, a little bit more extended up top, maybe, or boosted up top, a little bit boosted in the bass. That's going to give their scale, their dynamics, maybe that extra 5% of punch compared to the Elac. Is that worth spending an extra $500 and some odd for? I don't know, because to be honest, the Elacs were pretty damn fulfilling. They were pretty damn just enjoyable, you know?
If you had the budget to extend to get the THEVA, I personally would prefer those over the Elacs.
Okay.
But I still really like the Elacs. And sometimes, honestly, it's like, well, what day is it?
Yeah.
I can like one speaker versus another, and then come back to it later and be like, do I still like it as much? It's that it just evolves, you know?
Yeah.
And it kind of feels to me, I'm like, well, maybe it's just the day. Maybe it's the source material we're listening to. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's the amplifier.
Yeah.
There's so many different factors that can come into play that you really need to listen to them for yourself and then figure it out.
Well, the other thing that people need to keep in mind is I would say the $500 to $1,200 a pair speaker market is the most competitive there is. because the differences between $500 and $1,200, obviously monetarily, it's very easy to go, yeah, there's a big difference. But in terms of performance, I actually lump that whole group into one, because minus finish, performance wise, they're all kind of in the same ballpark. And to really break free of that general performance envelope, you have to go upmarket. You have to spend. Now, there's always going to be outliers. There's going to be some in this price that are performing way down here, and there's going to be a few in that maybe stretch it up to about the $1,500 mark. But in my experience, and in our numerous experiences here in this house, even objectively, like 500 to about 1,200, boy, you are starting to split hairs in terms of just raw basic performance. So yeah, like that's what I mean when I say, like, at $450, $500 a pair, the Elac, are they competitive with speakers twice their price at the $1,000 mark? Yeah, absolutely. And we even show you proof of that. Are they $5,000, $4,500 to $5,000 good? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And be very wary of those types of claims. But for what they are, they're phenomenal.
Okay, well, we have a couple more to get to.
Okay.
Monitor Audio is next up.
Mm-hmm.
Gene Howard says the Monitor Bronze 100.
Okay.
Specifically, what would you say the major difference between these would be?
Bronze is just going to be a punchier, slightly livelier, but not bright. Just a punchier, slightly livelier sound. Going to have a little bit better center focus. And a little bit sharper delineation, not quite to the degree of B&W where you're like, am I even hearing the same song? But more maybe like the SVS or, that kind of thing, where it's like, it's just got a little bit of an enhancement here and there that you're like, okay, I'm appreciating that.
Okay, well, the last question we have for today is from the Marklar.
Marklar. Oh, yeah.
The Marklar.
Yeah.
Andrew, this new Elac versus Q Acoustics 5020 bookshelf. Are the Q 5020s worth double the price? Or would you stick with the Elac and save your money? For the record, those speakers are $900 a pair.
The 5020s?
Yeah.
For bookshelves?
Yeah.
Huh. Because we reviewed the 5040 towers, and if memory serves, those were $1,400 for the pair. I'm surprised.
5040s?
Yeah, 5040 book tower.
Those were $750 each, so yeah.
Yeah, $1,400, $1,500.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. We haven't heard the 5020s. The new ones. We only got the 5040s.
Have we not had a...
We've never had the bookshelves. We got the 5040s.
Okay. Well, we've reviewed, you're right. The only bookshelf we've ever reviewed
is the Concept 300.
Yeah. Although I think we were sent like a bookshelf that was powered or something.
No, we had a pair of their budget bookshelves from like the 1080 line, which was the previous generation, that we would use in other videos, but we never reviewed them.
Yeah, but I think they sent us as well. They sent us a new speaker that was a bookshelf within the past. I think since we've lived in our new home, and we decided not to review it.
Oh, their powered speakers didn't work.
The
powered speakers didn't work. They work now. They've had a firmware update, but when we took delivery of them, they didn't work. Okay. Anyway, back to the question. Unfortunately, I can't answer that definitively. Obviously, I'm a big Q Acoustics fan. My girl over here, massive Q Acoustics fan.
Oh, 100%. The Concept 50s are still among my favorites.
I don't believe Q Acoustic makes a bad speaker. I really don't. I think that every time that we've gotten the opportunity to listen to everything, that one powered speaker notwithstanding, they've all been great. That's another brand that just for whatever reason continues to fly under the radar, despite everyone that listens to their product coming away going like, you know what? Shoot, that's pretty freaking good. Yeah. So I don't know. Visually, obviously, Q Acoustics is going to be a little bit more interesting with those rounded edges, a little bit more modern design. That could be worth a premium. Performance-wise, do I think that I would hear night and day difference? I would like to think, based on the Concept 50 and the 5040's performance, I get it, they're towers, but let's excuse the bass changes. I would like to think that the Q Acoustics are going to image that much better, disappear that much cleaner, and come away with a three-dimensional image that is a little bit easier to appreciate compared to the Elac, but I'm guessing.
That kind of covers all the questions I found.
Oh, okay.
Did you have anything else you want to add?
I genuinely didn't. I was pleasantly surprised by the Elacs. I really was. I don't know what I was expecting, but they were really good. They were really good. I guess I was more surprised that you loved them as much as you did.
Me too.
Because Elac historically for you has not been a brand that you normally are like, hey, put those on. But there were many, many times when we were A-Bing and, you did prefer them. And I was color knocked me over with a feather that you preferred them to the B&W, because you almost always are like, put the B&Ws back on because they're easier for you to understand.
Yeah, that was a bit...
I mean, I even went out of my way to get the B&Ws back in this house, the 600 series back in this house, mostly for you and to see like how they compare, and for you to be like, no, I like the Elacs. I was like, well, this backfired.
Well, yeah. I mean, honestly, I didn't know what was going on myself either.
Yeah.
That's why I said earlier on in this video that it was very difficult for me to explain why I suddenly prefer the Elac, or that I even like them.
Yeah.
Because I've had very strong feelings about the sound, Elac sound in the past.
Yeah.
And yes, I was also surprised by my reaction to preferring them to the B&Ws. The B&Ws just felt small to me, and I can't say that I've ever really felt that way about a B&W speaker. So yeah, toss it up to I don't know what. I don't know. Like you guys, sometimes you like things, and maybe you come back in the comments a month later and you say you don't.
Yeah.
And maybe you forgot that you said that. I get it.
Yeah. Happens.
I get it. It happens.
Happens. Oh, no, that's all I got. I think they're great. I do.
All right. Let's wrap it up.
All right. Well, that's it. That is Unplugged episode 22. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to tune in Sunday. Brand new video. Some of you guys have been asking for, vintage. I'm kind of curious. Does this qualify? We'll see. We'll see if this qualifies on Sunday. Tune in. Should be a good one. And enjoy the rest of your Friday. And thanks for hanging out with us. See you Sunday. Bye.